today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book Second Acts Winning Strategies for Dating Over 50. No other than Miss Andrea Mcginty.
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Andrea. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. I'm Andrea Mcginty, and I have been for the last 40 years fixing people up and
Yes.
matchmaking and working with people with online dating. And I've had over 10,200 marriages, and I've
Wow.
set up more than 33,000 people. And that's where my newest book came from, that just came out last month.
Well, congratulations, Miss Andrea, for
Thank
giving
you.
your book to the world. And we are hoping for more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, what is the main goal of Second Act in helping readers with a modern romance?
Well, what I'm really focusing on now are people over the age of 45. So the 45 to 65-year-old crowd who, they may have gotten married in their, early 20s. And when they walked up the aisle, they never contemplated that, oh, wow, I'd like to do this again someday.
Yes.
And they wake up one day and they're 45 or 50 and they find they're divorced. And they're like, oh, wow, how do I start all over again? Because back, in their day, they met people through college, grad school, the workplace, the bars, venues like that. And suddenly when you're 50, that's not what you want to be doing. And you start to feel like the whole world is married. And so second acts is really about your second act in life, because at age 50, you still have a lot of life to live. And how do you go about meeting people? So you're not meeting them in college anymore. You're not meeting them in bars because you're not doing that anymore. So how do you meet? And online dating has really become big in the last 10 years. And it's really, um, for the 50 something age group, it's scary because they don't know how to use it. They didn't grow up with it. They got married maybe in 1990. And, in the 90s, there was no Google, there was no online dating, there was nothing like that. So, and also there's 1,400 dating platforms out there, dating sites and dating apps, and they have no idea which one to pick, how to go about it. And there's still that whole, stigma attached to it. Like, oh, I must be a loser if I have to put my picture online and meet people where, I've got kids that are in their 20s and they're like, oh, no problem, mom, putting my picture online and, meeting people. But, my age group, it's a whole different story. So what I do is I help them every step of the way, from um, introducing them to online dating strategies that work. My book is full of 166 strategies on online dating and what really works. And it has 15 worksheets in it, that everything from like, is my mind, what's my mindset? Am I there yet? What's my personal branding statement? They may be on like Facebook and Instagram and, other social media. So they are already kind of influencers about their own life, but they have to learn how to influence for themselves, for dating. So I help them, get over that hump of, oh, there's a stigma involved. And then one of the most important things about online dating is your photo. And the photos people put up tend to be, 10 years old or awful photos. So I vet their photos, I write their bios, for online. And then I choose the right site too, because when you're trying to pick the right site. I just told you there's 1,400 dating sites out there. It's like, good luck picking the right one, for you and where you live. What works in New York or San Francisco or Vancouver or Dallas, and it's not going to be the same thing. It's going to depend. It's going to be very geographically inclined. So I help them choose the right dating site. And from that, I take a very business-like approach to dating. And I do the research for them. And one of the last worksheets they fill out in the book is actually uh, a business plan for their personal life, which they're like, what? I fill out a business plan for my personal life? Yes, you do. You want to know
Yes.
who's your competition? What are you looking for? What's our goal? What do we want? Do we want marriage again? Do we just want a long-term partner? Do we want somebody to travel with? So I help them every step of the way. And over 70% of my clients end up in relationships, which makes me happy.
Awesome, Miss Andrea. Awesome. So, how does the book address dating after divorce or a long-term relationship?
Well, it goes through every step. I mean, a relationship ends and you feel like, wow, your world's crashed, right?
Yes.
Especially if you're the one who didn't, want the divorce, or even if you did want the divorce, you're like, how do I do this all over again? So the book walks you through every single step. And there's also QR codes interspersed throughout the book with me giving 5 or 10 minutes personal coaching on that worksheet they're filling out, which by the time they get through 15 worksheets, they're ready to go. They're ready to go online. So, there's a process you go through. And people tend to think, the men always say to me, all the good women are taken. The women always say to me, all the good men are married. I'm like, no, they're not. In the United States, 40% of men over age 50 are single, whether they're divorced, widowed, or just single. So this takes them through every step of how to find your partner, how to know what you're looking for, how to avoid, red flags, people that maybe aren't right for you. And it also has the objectivity that your friends don't have or you don't have when you're looking yourself for somebody. You might be like, as a man, you might think, oh, wow, she's really pretty and, all this other stuff. But, she may not have the right personality for you, or she might have young children at home, or there might be some issues that you can't get around. And that's where a dating coach or a dating concierge, as I am, comes into play. An objective person who's been in this industry for a long time. And I got started when I was in my 20s because I was getting married, and 2 days before the wedding, my fiance called off the wedding, and suddenly I was single and I was like, oh my gosh, and I was living in Chicago. How do you meet people? Well, in those days, we're talking the early 90s, you met people through your friends, you met people through bars, things like that. And I found that these dates would go on, way too long. And that's why I started my first company. I thought, why couldn't there be a place that you could go to? And again, this predates Google, this predates online dating and Match.com and Bumble and Hinge and Tinder and everything else out there. Why couldn't there be a place you go to that's like an executive recruiter, but it's for your personal life? And that's how I came up with my first company. And it's called It's Just Lunch, and it's still in existence today. And I started that in Chicago. It grew very rapidly. And by 2015, we had 110 locations worldwide. And I sold the company to private equity uh, at that point because I saw really what was going on with the dating industry, and that online dating had really started to become credible, and they had verification for photos. They knew how to get rid of scammers. They knew how to age photos so that when you were looking at somebody online, the picture's not from 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's, a current photo. So, I kind of employed everything that I learned over the last, 25 years, and started coaching people on what I think is the biggest opportunity to meet people. And that's through online dating. Because, little dating services or little matchmaking services in your town, that you live in or the city you live in, they're going to have a couple hundred people. The internet's going to open you up geographically to thousands of people. So why not take that route and, have a much better selection of people to meet and find a relationship and find, the second love of your life.
Certainly, totally agree, Miss Andrea. So let's talk about online dating strategies. What are some key tips for creating an effective online dating profile?
Okay. Well, so first of all, online dating is very visual. So you have to, even if the first thing they really see is your bio, they're looking at your photos. It doesn't matter if you're a man, it doesn't matter if you're a woman. They're looking at your photos first. So you have to have great photos. And that might mean really good candid photos. And I'm not talking about like your LinkedIn photo or a work photo. I'm talking about, photos of you in your natural habitat doing what you do. So, if you're into tennis or golf or hiking or pickleball, some good action shots, a good skiing shot of you, a picture paints 1,000 words. So really good photos. If you don't have them, and I would say probably half the time my clients don't have the really great photos, I'll have them use a professional photographer. And when I'm talking about a professional photographer, I don't mean like, posed pictures, with this bad background behind them and stuff, but, active photos, photos of you doing what you really do. So, number one, most important thing, photos. Number two, attitude. You have got to go into this with the attitude. You're going to be positive, and you've got to get over the whole, I can't believe I'm doing online dating, or online dating is for losers. So you've got to be positive, and you've got to be patient, and you have to be ready to give this a 3-month shot. Too many people with online dating quit after 2 weeks. And the number one reason is they're on the wrong site. I said, I think twice now, there's 1,400 dating apps out there. You pick the right one, excuse me, you pick the wrong one, you can get discouraged very, very quickly. So just because your friend in New York is using, let's say, Bumble, and you live in Austin, Texas, Bumble may not be the right site for you. You may belong on, Hinge or Coffee Meets Bagel. That might be a much, much better site for you. So photos first, the right site next, and then you've got to have an engaging bio. Okay, so we've got those three things. You're online, you're ready to rock and roll. Now,
Yes.
you cannot be passive. And this is the thing that, and this is not a man problem, this is a woman problem that I'm always trying to tell women, especially, the women that are like 55, 60 years old. They just want to be passive. They just want to sit online and wait for men to hunt for them. And that's not the way this works. This is not our grandparents or our parents, generation where we're waiting to be, searched for or asked out. Men love women with self confidence. Men like it when a woman sends them a message. So that's the next thing I teach people, how to write good messages initially. And I don't mean like a biography or a novella. I mean, a couple of sentences that are unique, probably a little quirky. And quirky doesn't mean weird, but quirky means, something that's going to really grab their attention. And so that you have some dialogue going back and forth between the two of you. And then that turns into a first date because that's our whole goal. The the texting back and forth initially is only information gathering. And so, if you're like, I'm 50-50 whether or not I want to meet her. Um, because you never know until you meet the person face to face, what they're like. And I also really discourage people talking on the phone before a date. A couple of messages back and forth, that's sufficient. And then to be able to say, hey, let's meet Sunday afternoon at 4, for a glass of wine and an appetizer at Bistro 110. How does that sound? So, have something planned in mind for the first date. It's safe. It's it's not dinner, so it's not going to turn into a 3-hour date. It's 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and or a Saturday lunch. It's going to go on for an hour, and you're going to meet a new person. And the other thing that I find too is people need practice, and the only way you get good at online dating when you've been married for like 20-25 years is practice. So by the time you've gone on 3 or 4 first dates with different people, you're like, oh, wow, I've still got it. I can still talk. I'm still interesting. I'm still fun. And your confidence soars. So you've got to have, good confidence and, high self esteem. And the only way you get that is through some practice.
So, Miss Andrea, what would be your advice for those people out there want to do their first date or to do their first move?
What would be my advice when they want to do their first date?
Yes.
You mean what to do?
What to do or what are the necessary tips that you want to give to them?
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't want you to do coffee because going to a Starbucks is not romantic and it's crowded and it can be really weird because people can overhear you, right?
Yes.
So, but at the same time, you don't want to go on a hike in the woods with them either because you don't know them, right? So you want to do something where you're at a comfortable place. So I would say, pick a restaurant or pick a place that you've been before, and the tables are going to be separated enough. But a first date, yeah, it's going to be something like where you're having a drink or lunch or something like that. Now, the second date could be a lot different, more different in terms of, your conversation on the first date might have been about music and bands and, hey, Coldplay is coming here next week. I've got tickets. Would you like to go? Now we're doing something else, but that's a second date. You're not going to do that for a first date. I had one man who um, was talking to one of my clients and said, let's get together for lunch. And then he changed it before lunch and said, because I'm in South Florida, and said, let's go to Disneyland or Disney World for the day. I'm like, no, you don't want to go spend a whole day at Disney World with the first time you met this person, right? I mean, Disney's fun, but for a whole day with a stranger, I don't think so. That's a good like third date, but it's not, it's not your first date. If you're into like paddle boarding or outdoor sports or tennis, that'll be a really good second date. First dates, they're kind of meetings. You're gonna meet, you're gonna eat something, you're gonna have a drink. If you don't drink alcohol, that's okay, just order something else. But you're gonna keep it to an hour and see how you feel and see if you like the person, because the first date is nothing more than, do I want to go on a second date? It's not, do I want to marry her, right?
Yes, for sure. Thank you for your advice, Miss Andrea. And what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
I'm sorry, what would be my
Short term and long term goals in writing.
in writing?
Yes.
You mean my book?
Yes. In the process of writing the second act, what will be your second book or third book that you are producing?
Well, yeah, I mean, this book right now is actually my second book. I wrote
Okay.
another book about 10 years ago. This book is to take you from A through Z for online dating. The next book that I'm working on has more stories about real people and what happened to them as a result of online dating and some very unexpected things. And it's also kind of a fun book. It's a book of lists too. It's a shorter book. Like this book right now is 400 pages, and it's got in the back, I don't know if you can see this, but all these worksheets at the back. um, the next book with clients real experiences with online dating and what's happened also includes lists like top 10 conversation starters, top 10 places to go on first dates, top 10 things to do when you're meeting family for the first time. So it's more of a fun, you're kind of starting a relationship, and here's some lists of things that you can really implement on these dates. This book that I just wrote is, I just want to get you on dates after you've been in a long relationship.
Yes, indeed. So good luck to your goals, Miss Andrea. And how can or how should someone handle ghosting or rejection gracefully?
Oh, well, they should handle it without ghosting, and they should handle it via text. They shouldn't do it with a phone call, because you know what? You're not going to be interested in everybody. How could you be? So the best way to do it is, just sending a nice text either that night or the next morning and saying, it was a pleasure to meet you. I wish you the best of luck with online dating. I don't think we're a match, but I really enjoyed meeting you. Boom, the end. So the other person knows, where they stand with you, and you've done it gracefully. And sometimes I have clients that will say, "Oh, I want to call him and explain." And I'm like, "No, he doesn't want you to call him and explain, why you're not
Yeah.
interested, and he's still interested. That's just going to hurt his feelings. So just a nice text is the best way to do it."
Certainly, totally agree, Miss Andrea. Do it gracefully, people. So let's talk about the long-term success and commitment. How does the book help readers move from casual dating to long-term commitment?
Well, it takes you through the process, because on the first date, on the second date, we're all on our best behavior, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're the best we're ever going to
Never.
be on our first and second dates.
True.
By the time you get to date number 10, you know, they're seeing the real you. You might have had a bad day at work. You might have had a car accident. You might have had something, happen that, I don't know, your dishwasher broke, whatever. They're going to see you like irritated. So it's good to move to remember, the first date's the best you're ever going to get, and you're really going to learn more about their personality with time. And that's why I discourage people when they tell me after they've gone on like 2 dates together that we're in love, we don't want to go out with any more people. And I'm like, mm-mm, you don't know enough about each other yet. Go, keep dating other people, keep dating each other, but keep dating other people until you're like, yeah, I think this is right. This is right for us. And that usually takes like 2 or 3 months to get to that point where you're, really exclusive with another person.
Really exclusive. So, Miss
Yes.
Andrea, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101. It's fifth season, people, fifth season with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letters senders all over the world. So please do listen, Food 101, wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Andrea, what final message that you are imparting to second acts?
Well, I would say first of all, you want to be positive, and you want to separate yourself from your married friends or from your friends that are single and negative. I would say the first step, absolutely, buy my book. Um, I'm expensive to hire. I'm worth it, but I'm expensive to hire. And my book is really going to take you through all of my coaching. So, yeah, second acts, winning strategies for dating over 50. It's available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere online. You can buy the book. And then the other thing you can do is you could reach out, go to my website, which is 33,000dates.com, and that's 33000dates.com. And there's a fun quiz for men and a fun quiz for women to take, and it really rates you in terms of how ready you are for dating. And it'll give you some information on how to improve what you're doing too. And then there's also a link, if you'd like to speak to me, do a 15-minute call with me to see if, we'd be a good fit working together, and I can coach you through the dating process. But I would say, start with looking at my website, 33,000 Dates, and buy the book, because the book's going to give you so much information. There's no fluff in it. I'm really direct and strategic and business-like in the book, because I want you to meet someone.
Certainly. So, Miss Andrea, thank you so much for sharing your books to the world. And we are looking forward for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Thank you.
Yes, Miss Andrea, where they can buy your books.
You can buy my book at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere books are sold online. You're in Canada, uh, Amazon Canada has my book. Anywhere in the United States, all the booksellers have my book too.
Yes. So, second act is your second book. Which one? The first one that you publish?
Pardon me?
Which one? Your the first book that you published? Which one? What's the title?
The first book that I published was called Dating in America, and I published that in 2005. So it's a little
Yes.
bit dated. So I would say don't buy that book. Buy
Why
the current,
not?
buy the 2025 book that just came out last month.
Buy the second act, people. Let's support Miss Andrea Mcginty, because if you support her, more and more and more empowering books like this to come. So, Miss Andrea, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. It was fun being a guest on your show.
More to come, people. See you soon. Thank you, Miss Andrea. If you have another book to be published, and